Happy Holy Hump Day on this September 15th, everyone. I'm Pastor Robert. Welcome to this midweek time where I can share some spiritual thoughts and reflections with you. For today, I thought it would be good to talk again about thin place moments. You've heard me talk a lot about thin place moments. In fact, my second sermon here at Athens First was about thin place moments, and that was, a little over 6 years ago. And it kind of took a life on of its own, and I've really appreciated that. So people have been using the phrase thin place moments, which isn't a phrase that I came up with. It's really from Celtic Christianity. They developed the phrase to refer to the thin place when heaven and earth overlap in our everyday lives. And Celtic Christians encouraged one another to share when those moments happen, where you feel God and sense God in a very real way, just in your everyday lives. It doesn't have to be overly dramatic. It just is where you recognize that. And so I talked about thin place moments in that sermon, and I thought it would be good just to share a couple of thin place moments, in my life. And these happen all the time, so some are more maybe dramatic than others, but this is something we encourage the people in our church to share with one another. Where have you experienced God? When have you experienced a God moment is another way we refer to that. Or I call them maybe holy goosebumps. When have you really felt, oh, God was really present in that situation? Sometimes they really surprise us, and sometimes it takes like reflection, looking back, and then realizing, oh, that was a thin place moment. So in that sermon over 6 years ago, when I talked about the concept of thin place moments, I shared the story of when in my previous church, I had a funeral of an elementary school age child, and I had gotten to know him. I knew he had had a terminal illness, and so I got to know him. He was a very witty child and had a great sense of humor, and he was always asking questions about faith, and I baptized him during that time, and we talked about what it means to have Jesus in your life and having a faith where you can know that God's always going to be with you. And one of the things he shared with me and with the family was that when he would die, that he would send butterflies to remind us that he's thinking of us because he liked butterflies. And so about a month or so after the funeral, I remember I was needed to go to the local hospital to visit somebody from the church. And instead of going my normal route, I went a shortcut through some neighborhoods. And I just so happened to go by this child's grandmother's house. And she was out front on the front porch. And I just thought, well, I'll just pull up because I haven't seen her since the funeral. And so we were talking, and it just so happened that morning she was going to be heading over to the cemetery because the headstone was now ready for her grandson, and she was going to make sure that she was there for when it was placed. And so that was interesting. And as she was talking and we were in tears and just remembering her grandson, all of a sudden this butterfly landed on her arm. And all we had to do was just look at each other and smile. And, what a thin place moment that was. So I shared that story with you all, if you were here a little over 6 years ago in my second sermon with you. So that's one of the thin place moments that stands out for me. Another one for me personally was when my mother passed away back in 2012 in South Central Pennsylvania. I have 2 sisters and a brother, and we were all there holding vigil for our mom who passed away during that week. And it was just a very difficult time, but it also was a very holy time just to spend time with her in her last days and to be together as family. And I remember the day when she passed, later in the day, I really just felt the need to go for a run. And I like to be outdoors and to walk or go for a run when I can. And so I remember praying to God before I went on that run, God, give me a sign that you are present with me because I'm feeling scared and lost a little bit and just so sad that, Mom is no longer with us. And so I just said that little prayer, and I went on this run. And as I was going for this run, there was this father and his child, and they were like walking kind of toward me as I was going to be running past them. And as I got closer to them, the child just looked up at me and just said, "God bless you." And I just thought, okay, that is God answering my prayer, reminding me that God is with me during this difficult day. And I just put a smile on my face as I continued to run by, and I said, "God bless you" back to the child and to the child's father. And then I would say another one was when I got to see a spiritual mentor of mine who was not doing well with his health. And it was actually up at Lakeside, Ohio, where our annual conference meets. And he was fortunately able to be there for that annual conference, even though he was in ill health. And I invited him to go down with me to get some ice cream because I knew he liked to get ice cream up there at Lakeside. That's something you do when you're up there. And when we went to the pier where the ice cream place was, we sat on a bench. And it just so happened that a pastor friend of mine sat down next to me, and I introduced him to my spiritual mentor friend, who's also a pastor. And as they started talking to one another, my friend who had just sat down with us, he, through conversation, realized that my friend knew his grandfather. And so there was this connection. And then my friend who was in ill health said, if it wasn't for your grandfather, when I was younger in my ministry, I probably wouldn't have come out here to serve as a pastor in the West Ohio Conference because he came to my seminary in New York to visit with me and invite me to consider going to West Ohio to serve. And so I have a lot of gratitude for your grandfather, and it's just great that I could meet his grandson this day. And that just so happened to be the 50th anniversary of when he had been ordained as a pastor. And so there he was meeting this man's grandson those many years later. So, and I just, when these things happen, they give me goosebumps. And it's when heaven and earth, they overlap. And we call these sacramental moments as well, because sacramental means where we know that the sacred is coming into our space, into our time and space. And that's what we refer to as the sacrament of Holy Communion or the sacrament of Holy Baptism. It's when we know that God is present in a very unique and specific way. And so I just want to encourage you to look out for your thin place moments and see how God is at work in your life. And by all means, continue to share your thin place moments with your neighbors, coworkers, classmates at school. This is how we share our faith. And it's just so exciting when we hear each other share how God has been made present in our lives. And they don't have to be dramatic ways. They can be very simple and ordinary ways, but they are very beautiful spiritual moments in our lives. I do invite you to join us for worship this Sunday, and I do believe that we experience God in a real way through worship as well as we gather together, whether in person at our 10:30 worship service or watch live stream on our church's YouTube channel. The theme for this Sunday is You Are Welcome, and it's based on our gospel reading for this Sunday from the Gospel of Mark. So I invite you to be part of our service this Sunday. And may God bless you as you continue to be on the lookout for those thin place moments that are present with us each and every day.